Greetings and a hearty welcome, everyone. I hope you're all faring well. I'm Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host, coming to you, shining love light into your hearts and homes to uplift, inspire, and empower you to create a life you love. Our show today, Embracing Just Me, Transforming Anxious Attachment into Empowered Living with Sharla Shults. This show will inspire us to reclaim our power. Embracing ourselves fully is accepting all aspects of ourselves, knowing that nothing is ever wasted as we love, grow, and discover ourselves. Ralph Waldo Emerson eloquently quotes, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." We can lose ourselves in unhealthy attachments, living in accordance with how others expect us to be, sacrificing ourselves at all costs to be approved and accepted. Embracing you is loving yourself enough to set boundaries, take time to care for yourself every day, and do what you love and what makes you feel alive. Germany Kent quotes, "Embrace who you are and your divine purpose. Identify the barriers in your life and develop discipline, courage, and the strength to permanently move beyond them and keep moving forward." So, how can we come back to the person we are truly meant to be? How can we accept our personal uh, perceived flaws and imperfections and know we are worthy no matter what? How can we become empowered by freeing ourselves from unhealthy attachment? Our guest today, Sharla Shults, will show us how to restore, reclaim, and value ourselves and our lives. Sharla is such an inspirational person who has an affinity for the beauty of nature, stepping away from the busyness and business of daily life. In a conversation with her, Sharla made an intriguing comment. "My purpose is me." I just love that. Fully embracing herself and being authentic in self expression and shining her light in the world. Charlotte fulfills her childhood desire to become an educator, graduating from Troy University that led her into teaching high school chemistry, middle school, and working with Special Olympics, where she was instrumental in establishing exchange club youth organizations in 3 high schools located in Panama City, Florida. While involved in this endeavor, she introduced a poetic math challenge, which uncovered her passion as a poetic mathematician and a new formula for success. Charlotte also serves as beacon educator in the Bay District school system, writing curriculum and providing professional development for teachers across the state of Florida. Semi-retiring in 2001, becoming an online learning specialist for Beacon. Charlotte is the author of Echoes, Remembering, Awakenings, and A Touch of Catnip, Voices in Nature. So now I welcome Sharla Shults on our show today, Embracing Just Me, Transforming Anxious Attachment into Empowered Living. Sharla, welcome to Love Life.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jean, for all those wonderful words, but more importantly, having me on your show. I'm very, very, very excited. And what's been a very powerful and deep, rewarding personal journey of my own, being able to share this with others opens the door to adding value to their lives, where they will be able to grow and learn and enjoy and break free from some of the attachments that they have been bound by for so many years. I'm a woman that's been shaped by real emotional roots and now helping others untangle theirs. Yeah, this is all about living insightfully, fully engaged, That's why it's just me.
I love that. I love that. And Charlotte, a lot of times people think about, you know, looking at our episode, just me. Many think that just me may be perceived as being selfish. How can this be reconciled to become more empowered?
Well, it's just the opposite because every individual can make that statement, just me, because we are individuals and we know ourselves. And from my past experience, unfortunately, I put myself down more than I realized my self-worth. That followed me throughout my life. And I found myself trying to pattern after others. And then also, I became a perfectionist, very controlling, the attributes that were not conducive to a fulfilled life. I think that's the best word, is
Hmm.
fulfilled. And going within and realizing that it's not my external. Why should I criticize anything? Because it's my belief inward, it's my inner self, and my awareness and mindfulness is more important than anything else. And that has come out for me in the later part of my life. So if I can introduce this to others at any age, from youth, all the way through young adult to middle life, even on up to the senior life where I am now, there's always room for growth. There's
And
growth and there's transformation.
Yes, and Charlotte, I think we were talking earlier about how you move through life in these structured patterns and expectations of trying to be perfect. And we talked about the seasons of life, the seasons of change. When you get to be older, you become wiser. And as the Buddhists say, you're you end up having to unlearn a lot of what you have learned. Because a
Yes.
lot of times we just move through life unconsciously, operating in patterns that really don't serve our highest good. So thank you so much for this show.
And that's you just struck a word when you said patterns. In the anxious attachment word or world, it's those patterns that we have that were developed from childhood. And it's not to say that our parents did wrong, right or wrong. They knew what they knew, and we learned from them. And our generational life actually goes back as far as 7 years, I mean, 7 generations, excuse me. And all the patterns that were back in the past have come forward into the life that we have today. And that's why when I talk to people, I try to encourage them, don't live in the past.
Hmm.
Look at the present. And that's go within and treat yourself, love yourself, because that's the importance, and not those patterns that we learned back as a child, because they don't serve us today. A lot of them are not anything that we need in our life. And I can relate to that because I developed the aspect of unworthiness.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was worthy to do anything. I didn't belong. Even when I was in school, in high school, I always had this feeling, I just don't belong. I don't belong. And that was only because I kept telling myself I didn't belong because I didn't believe I did.
Mm,
It was
perfect.
all me.
Yeah.
That's why it's just me, and everyone needs to look at it that aspect. And it's the choices that we make, and we have to look inside, and that's the transformation that comes from within.
That's so beautifully said because we are responsible for ourselves, and a lot of times people end up blaming others. Oh, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be, stuck in this pattern or doing these things or whatever. So they're caught up in blaming others for their misfortunes.
Correct.
And as we talk about attachments, and I love what you said because we make these attachments, these patterns an integral part of our lives, be it in partnerships,
Mhm.
romantic relationships, friendships, work, social, whatever, these patterns follow us. And I think a lot of times it takes that moment of awareness and self-reflection, because for me it's like something about it doesn't feel right. And
Yeah.
people can keep on doing it. It's like, gosh, that conversation or that encounter was exhausting. But then people may make excuses. Well, maybe they're responding a certain way because it's a bad day or whatever, so we can excuse away you know, things that we need to really look at for ourselves. And as you indicated, it really is just me.
Yeah, and it's not about excuses and it's not about blame.
Hmm.
And I believe the word awareness, and that was a word that I really was not familiar with. I haven't really, thought about it. But even now, when I go out on my walks, I don't say I'm walking.
Hmm.
I am aware that I'm
Yes.
walking.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
I'm
nice.
aware of the wind as it goes through my hair. I'm aware of the
Hmm.
sun as it warms my skin. I'm
Mm.
aware of the sounds around me and listening to the birds. It's just so different than just saying, I'm going to go for a walk. Or you step
Indeed.
outside and say, oh, what a beautiful day.
Hmm.
That it goes way beyond that.
And what
Way.
you're talking about is really being present. And
It's
this keeps
presence.
our heart
Yes.
open. So, as we talk about unhealthy attachments or identifying attachments, and I know, our hearts can become closed and we can live out these old patterns. So, can you talk about, the patterns, and we know our upbringing may influence us, societal expectations, and as you indicated, trying to be perfect. I've been there, that if I'm perfect, I'll be approved, I'll be loved,
Mhm.
I'll be accepted. Quite the contrary. So, talk about attachment patterns so that our
Yeah,
listeners can become more
yeah,
aware.
attachment patterns show up in
Mm-hmm.
how we respond to closeness or even to distance, to conflict, to communication. Sometimes you'll be in a situation where in a conversation and the thought will just strike you, did I do something wrong? Why are they acting this way? Did I say something? Is it a movement that I did when actually you didn't do anything?
Mm-hmm.
It's your perception and your interpretation. And a lot of times that we may have been taught that you don't say this, you don't say that, you do this, you do that. And when you're in the conversation, all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation that, but wait a minute, do I say this or do it? You start questioning
Yes.
without really listening and going within and being able to make the decision or pausing. Sometimes we react and we react too quickly when we should basically just pause for just a moment, just a few seconds, and respond. And that response is going to come out a little bit differently because we don't lash out. We don't look and say, oh my gosh, they're saying this or saying that, or they're talking me down, or what do they mean by this or that? We'll stop the mental noise. It's the mental noise that sometimes disrupts our consciousness. And then all of
Mm.
a sudden we're caught and we don't know what to say. And I do believe it comes back from what I've said earlier, from the way we were taught in our childhood. And I know that was me, and I was very shy and very reluctant to say anything because I always feared I would say something wrong.
Mm.
There was the perfectionism that everything had to be right.
Yes.
And those are the attachment patterns.
And how we respond, has a lot to do with how we feel. And I love what you said. A lot of times, if you're in this interaction, you have a tendency to take things personal. What did I do? What did I
Mhm.
say? And then you
Yeah,
can spend time, and it's really not about you. It's about
exactly. It's
perhaps
not
the
right,
other.
Jean. Yeah, excuse me for
Mhm.
interrupting. It's
Sure.
not about you at all. And when you said that about the emotion, that the feelings and the emotions are different. I could
Mhm.
have the feeling but I never could have the emotion.
Mm,
I had a really, really tough time in expressing my emotion. And even to this day in my journey, that's one of the areas that I'm working on because here again, that emotion is that inner feeling. So
mm,
it was very
mm.
difficult for me.
Before we go on break, I'd like for you to highlight again anxious attachment.
Yeah, the anxious attachments are those attachments that come on real quick. And a lot of times you're not really familiar or you don't have the thought process, to analyze exactly what's happened, and it brings on the anxiety. And
Mm-hmm,
when it brings out that anxiety, then a lot of times that's when we shy back. We don't know how to respond, and we
mm-hmm.
don't know what to do. And sometimes we're lost in the process.
Very good. We become self-accusatory
Yeah.
and at
Oh,
all
oh,
costs.
yes,
Mm-hmm,
that's the worst
mm-hmm,
part because
mm-hmm,
we instead
mm-hmm,
of going by here's an example, a mirror. Instead of passing by a
mm-hmm.
mirror and
Okay.
looking in the mirror and saying,
Mm-hmm,
"Oh my gosh, look at me today.
okay.
Oh, I need to lose weight. I need to go have my hair
Mm-hmm,
cut." Instead of having that perspective, when you walk by that
mm-hmm,
mirror, it doesn't matter what the reflection is in that mirror. That's superficial.
mm-hmm,
The
mm-hmm.
reflection you want to portray is what's inside. So
Indeed.
you look at that mirror and you say, "Oh gosh, what a beautiful person. Look at
Yes.
me. I'm going to be doing this today and I'm so excited." And you just put the
Mm-hmm.
biggest smile on your face and walk away.
Yeah, it reminds me, I studied a lot with Henry about Henry Drummond, and I adopted his model of love. And one thing when I was reading and studying about him, he really lived in love and exemplified love. And he said every time he walked by a mirror, he saw himself as divine love. So
Wow.
that's I always think about that. So for our listeners, when you look at yourself in the mirror, think about yourself as divine love. Well,
Divine
Charlotte, I
love.
think for our listeners, it's time for us to take a brief commercial break, and we will return shortly with some great self-awareness practices and affirmations by Sharla Shults. She's an educator, online specialist for Beacon Bay District School System, author of Echoes, Remembering, Awakening, and a Touch of Catnip, Voices in Nature. On our show today, Embracing Just Me, Transforming Anxious Attachment into Empowered Living. Stay tuned, we'll return shortly. Welcome back to Love Light, Living in the Spirit of Love. Today we are with Sharla Shults. She's an educator, author of Echoes, Remembering, Awakening, and a Touch of Catnip, Voices in Nature. On our show today, Embracing Just Me, Transforming Anxious Attachment into Empowered Living. And Sharla, before we left for break, you were talking about anxious attachments. Would you just really break that down further for our listeners to understand?
Yes, Jane, thank you so much for asking. Because when our attachment style becomes anxious, that's when it attacks our self-worth.
Mm,
That's when our self-worth gets outsourced and we feel like that we're just not worthy to perform, to say something, or to, whatever the situation might be. And um, we seek validation like just breathing air. And I found myself guilty of that because I would attempt something, or I might even be in a competition or a challenge or something, but I would always have to go to someone else and get validated.
mm,
It
mhm.
was like I couldn't do it on my own because my self-worth was so low. But if I felt like someone else told me I was good enough, then I would be
Yes.
able to perform, so to speak. And the that can make a relationship just totally exhausting. It can make a situation exhausting in the workplace, in a professional, with our
Mhm,
family, with our colleagues. And it hits us, but it also hits the other person. But when we begin to I don't go through a transformation process. I think that's the best word. When we transform and we begin to move from that place of unworthiness into a place where we realize our
mhm,
self-worth, then we learn to do that first internally. And
mhm,
once we build that internal feeling of self-worth, then we're going to outwardly present the feeling that we have inside because it's going to come naturally. And then we stop chasing. We stop chasing
mhm,
that validation. We
mhm.
stop seeking, from other people when all along it's right there within ourselves.
I love
It's
that.
authentic and it's peaceful, but it's
Mhm.
within.
And thus you become an empowered self. And
Yeah,
being true to
that's the
yourself,
empowerment.
yes, and being
Yeah.
true to yourself is to be authentic. Uh,
hmm Yeah.
so often you're trying to meet the expectations of others, trying to be accepted, trying to be noticed, trying to be approved,
hmm
and even comparing yourself to others, that is exhausting. You are your own yardstick. Measure yourself by yourself, and, look at each day trying to be a better version of yourself, not trying to be somebody else or comparing yourself to others.
Exactly. And I think that's where I found myself as I was growing up. For some reason, I kept comparing myself to others. And I put the boundaries in me. Nobody else
Yes,
did. I did it
yes.
because that was me for some reason. It just didn't I didn't have that feeling that I was a part of and I belonged,
Hmm.
but it wasn't of anyone else. I can't blame anyone else. It was
That's
just
true.
totally just me.
As we talk about unhealthy attachments and being more aware, um, let's talk a little bit before you go into strategies and affirmations to empower our listeners. Uh, Blocks to these, maintaining these unhealthy attachments. There are dynamics that operate in these relationships. And if I change, become more empowered, that can disrupt the dynamic or the interaction, up between, partners, co-workers, friends. And, you know, some people back down or may feel like, okay, it's too uncomfortable for me to change. And then they remain stuck in the pattern, but still don't feel good about themselves. Talk about the blocks and these dynamics, because I know, there comes a time where you may have to leave that job or leave that particular relationship or let go of that, perceived friendship or whatever. And that takes a sense of empowerment to do that.
Yes, and you really hit something there too, um, because it, when we are in situations like you're talking about, we're not authentic. And it goes back to your mentioning that a few, just a couple of moments ago. It's that authenticity and that strength that we need to have to be able to say what we want to say instead of just absorbing or going along with the flow, so to speak. And it takes courage, Jane. We have to have the courage, the faith, and the trust to be able to step into a world that we've probably never been there before, because we could be in a conflict. And in that conflict, even in a relationship, that's what we have lived and that's what we've learned and that's all we know.
Mm-hmm.
So our consciousness is like, okay, that's what you've done all your life. That's what you know, and you've lived it. You're safe. So let's
Mm-hmm.
don't change. Let's stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And you catch yourself in a rut, so to speak, because you're not aware and not ready to step forward and be able to break that breaking free. I think that's, I
I
have a
love that.
friend that's writing a book right now, and it's breaking free
Mm-hmm.
and being able to break free from those patterns because they're so ingrained in us, and those blockages. I'm unworthy. My self-esteem, of course, is low. I don't belong. I'm imperfect. All those things that are the noise, the mental noise that unfortunately control our life are the things that we need to let go.
Mm-hmm.
And
And,
once we are able to step into the moment when, even in a conflict, to just stop and pause. I remember my mother used to tell me, hold your breath and count to 10. And there is something to that,
mm-hmm.
because when you do that and you become conscious of your breath, then all of a sudden your mind calms. And when
Mm-hmm.
your mind calms, you're able to look at the individual with a calm mind instead of looking at that individual in the same state and frame of mind that that person is in.
Yes, that
So
is so true.
that's one way, that can be accomplished.
And I think uh, when you become self-empowered, you can't go back.
No, no,
And
you can't.
like you indicated, it takes confidence, it takes courage. And I know for me personally, I've been in situations that, I no longer fit. And when I was struggling, I took it into prayer. I asked for, the guidance from the angels, my higher self. Okay, what is it about this situation that I need to do? I mean, should I leave? I can enjoy it, but is it time for me to leave? And I remember, going into prayer, and I got up that morning and the message was crystal clear. It's time to go. And, you have to move forward and not look back.
That's the power of letting go.
Yeah, and
And,
then taking what you've learned to build on that and become more resilient, but there's no turning back.
no, there's not. And it's not easy. It's not,
Hmm.
it's doable, but
Hmm.
it's not necessarily easy.
No,
You just
no.
have to hope, you have to have the strength and the courage to, to continue on it. And like you're saying, Jane, you don't look back, because once you look back,
With
you're stepping
regrets.
back into the past and you're bringing
Yeah,
that past back into
yeah,
your future
yeah.
and into the present. So you want to leave the past behind. And in some of the coaching and the sessions, personal, that I have been in, that's what I've learned. And it sometimes is difficult, picture yourself with no past,
I like that.
as if you had no
Clean slate.
past. And
Yeah.
then look at the present. And I
Hmm.
finally understood living in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because this moment, every moment that we have, the split second that either something is said or done or whatever, can't be repeated.
And I love what you said about being in nature. I follow that same pattern when I'm like out in nature, feeling the wind against my
Mhm.
face or the sunshine or, looking at the colors in nature. I think that kind of practice makes you more present. So,
Oh, yeah.
how often, even for our listeners, are you not present and you miss information? You miss the cues, you miss the signs, you miss what really is being said because you're so caught up on, oh God, what did I do? What did I say? So it's a point of self correction and a point of being present, which is so important because then you kind of look at things from a wider view and you
Oh,
understand things more profound. And I always kind of take things to, the higher realm. Okay, what is it that I need to know about this situation? And then that gives me solace.
oh, you just hit something again when you said question. Oh my gosh, because if you do, or say, take for example, procrastination.
Mhm.
If you procrastinate on doing something, why? And then when you answer that why, then ask why again. And when you answer that why, then
Yes.
ask why again. And I've learned, if you go through that little sequence, the why, all of a sudden it'll come to light to you, why, and there really isn't a good reason.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
why do it?
The
Basically, that's what it
circular.
boils down to.
Yeah, that self-introspection, self-reflection. I love that because when
Yeah,
you are going in that circular cycle, it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. So what I'm doing doesn't make sense. So
exactly.
let's get into your strategies and affirmations so our listeners can really, be more discerning about these unhealthy attachments.
Well, but we talk to ourselves more than we talk to anyone else. And I'm the world's worst on my walks. I'll be just talking along. And I remember when I was growing up that when you talk to yourself, that meant that something was wrong. It's not. There's
Yeah.
absolutely nothing wrong with you talking to yourself. In fact, it's good for you. Um, but the problem is we don't always say kind things. We came up to that point earlier in the conversation, that we put ourselves down more than we lift ourselves up. So transformation begins when we start speaking to ourselves like the child we love. It's speaking, going inward. And don't use an affirmation like a fluff, like it's just something
Hmm.
I'm just going to say to make me feel good. Look at like a type of rewiring, of your
Mm-hmm.
brain. And it would be like, why am I like this? Why? Why if I feel this way? And instead of doing that, try, I feel different, but this feeling is valid. I'm safe to get beyond it. And then you move on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you do the positive. We hear a lot of this in this world about positivity and not the negative things, has a lot of truth in it, because the more positive light that we put on things, and the more we recognize that positivity, and we can take a negative and we can turn it into a positive. And anytime you can take that negative and flip that coin and turn it into a positive and pull something from it, then that negativity actually was not something negative at all. It was a
Mm-hmm.
learning.
Yes.
And that's what I have taken into my life. And the things that I have turned around have actually become learning experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of focusing them on, I did something wrong, you didn't do anything wrong. You just might have had an opportunity to learn something different.
That is very powerful.
And
Can we?
we want
Go
to
ahead.
set healthy boundaries,
Hmm.
Jean.
Hmm.
Boundaries are not walls. Our boundaries are invitations. And we want to invite people to be where we are. We want to respect them and them respect you, and both in the realm of growth. Because if we enter into the conversation with respect, then we are going to grow from it. Both of us will.
Hmm. That
So
is,
we become models. We
yes,
become models for others.
yes. And it's so important choosing yourself over unhealthy patterns, having the courage to walk away. As we indicated, it's not easy, it may be difficult, uh, but when you hold on to fear, the fear of letting go, and
Yeah.
I think, a lot of times we become comfortable without knowing that life can be better.
And
And
you
mhm,
hit
mhm,
something there too when you said walk away. Sometimes, and that I've had this in the workplace. If you've been in a meeting or perhaps with a team and maybe someone gets agitated because it might not be going just the way that they want it to go, but instead of bickering, back and
mhm,
forth or getting into a confrontation, it
yes,
if you just step back and just say, I'm a little bit overwhelmed right now. I don't know where this conversation is going. Can we just
mhm,
break for about 15 minutes? Let's go get a cup
yes,
of coffee.
yes,
And if you step away from it,
mhm.
sometimes just stepping away from it and calming, you find out that both people actually calm down. And when you come back, the situation has changed.
And that's so important to, take that time out to not get into engaging in the conflict,
Mhm.
because sometimes people have to prove that, you know, I'm more powerful than you, what I
Oh,
say
yeah.
goes, and then you get into this dysfunctional kind of interaction. And I love what you say. Sometimes just, be silent, step back, or interact in a way that gives people time to take a pause and
Mhm.
reflect, and then when you come back, perhaps you'll see things from a different point of view. But I think now we're ready for another commercial break.
Okay.
So for our listeners, stay tuned for more on Just Me, transforming anxious attachment into empowered living with Sharla Shults, educator, author of Echoes, Awakening, Remembering, and a Touch of Catnip, Voices in Nature. Stay tuned. We'll return with more strategies and tips. Welcome back to Love Light, Living in the Spirit of Love. Today we are with Sharla Shults. She's an educator, author of Echoes, Remembering, Awakening, A Touch of Catnip, Voices in Nature. On our show today, Embracing Just Me, Transforming Anxious Attachment into Empowered Living. And Sharla, you're going to continue with some tips and strategies?
I would like to give a few little quick tips.
Okay.
And the first one is give yourself grace.
Mm,
And transformation is not walking the straight and narrow. You're not just walking down a flat, straight path. You'll have good days and you'll have bad days. You'll have the ups and the downs and you have the challenges. So accept the challenges as learning opportunities and grow with them.
beautiful.
And anchor in small wins. Every honest emotion, every moment where you pause before you react is a win.
Mm,
Every time you say no when you used to say yes to follow along, that's a win. Any little small win, celebrate it and cherish it. And I love this. Let the rain kiss you.
mm,
Feel and savor the raindrops. And that's a line from Langston Hughes. I
mm,
shared that in my poem, Smell the Rain, in my book, Catnip of Life. Because as a reminder, life gets messy. With the rain, there's mud puddles.
mm.
But who says we can't have fun jumping in a mud puddle? It's anything that helps us grow.
I love that. Celebrating small wins. And I know it may sound overwhelming to some of the listeners who may feel stuck. Just start with simple things, just noticing, just being present. Let's start with just that. You don't have to make any gigantic steps forward because being aware, it takes being present and in tune with yourself. How am I feeling? How am I responding? So, as Charlotte indicated, it's an inside experience. Pay attention to how you're feeling.
Oh yeah, and another little tip too is the tree. When you're on a walk, there are two things I would encourage. Hug a tree because the tree is living. It's life. And when you hug that tree, just let go. Let go of any anxiety that you have in your body. Take all your might and put it into that tree. And when you let go, you release it and the tree takes it. It goes into its life, down through its roots and into the soil. But you have the relief. And the second one is a leaf. Pick up a leaf and just feel its texture. Notice the veins in that leaf and think about the veins that are running through your body.
Mm,
There's life in that leaf, just like in your body. And enjoy and treasure that moment that you have with the life outside yourself that can be brought inside yourself.
that is beautiful. Harnessing the energy, the healing power of nature is so important. So, if you feel, stuck or overwhelmed, just look to nature, and it is certainly healing. Charlotte, I know a lot of people, as we talk about unhealthy attachments, can you talk a little bit about healthy attachments and then maybe some support networks that you're engaged in and how it can help people who might feel stuck and need that extra support? So let's
Oh,
talk about
yes, yes,
healthy attachments.
yeah. The healthy attachments, I'm going to kind of connect that to your health and your vitality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your healthier attachments are taking care of yourself. Okay. That could come from your drinking your water every day, just hydrating your body. It could come into the food that you eat. It could simply be waking up in the morning and just doing stretches, in your bed to get your body moving instead of waking up, jumping out of bed, running to the bathroom, brush your teeth. I got to get to work. Take that 5 minutes just to relax and give your body a chance to wake up. So get that attachment to a morning routine to where you are not in such a rush. And when you do find that balance and the feel of calm in the morning, that will naturally flow with you through the day.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
in my life, I have learned to live by the core four. And the core four is living the life I love, being the predominant creator of my life, my true nature and purpose, and my health and vitality. And I have learned this through a group that I work with. I am a partner with attractinggrace.com. And anyone listening is welcome to go to the site, see what it's about, and it may be something that you're interested in. Being in a group where I can open up, be transparent, and be authentic means a lot. You learn from others, they learn from you, and you're all in a process of growth. And as you recognize the ups, the downs that each person goes through, then you realize there's nothing you're doing wrong. You're just learning and you're going through the transition. And as I mentioned earlier, that transition is not just a flat level road. That
Mhm.
transition has crossroads.
Mhm.
And it's being able to, as you're going down that path, do I continue straight the way I've been going, in my life? Or do I look and I turn to the right and I look for something different?
Mhm.
And those
So,
are the decisions that you make. And sometimes in working with a group and being able to talk things out and listen to others better prepares you for when you meet your own crossroads.
that's so important. And in groups, we learn from others, we see ourselves in others, and there's no judgment and
No, there's
criticism.
no judgment
Mhm.
whatsoever, no questioning,
Mhm. Mhm.
no criticism, a lot of jokes and a lot of laughter and
And you need
just
that.
fun. It's fun.
So, how
Yeah.
can listeners connect with your group?
Attractinggrace.com.
Okay. And I think you have like some free offerings for our listeners.
Oh, I most certainly do. I developed 3 PDFs. And the PDFs are on attention, sorry about that, anxious attachments. That is a teaser to the workbook. Anxious Attachments Unbound is my new book that will be coming out in probably in the next month or so. And along with it will be a workbook.
Oh,
So this
nice.
is a PDF teaser to the workbook and gives you insight into anxious attachments. Dance with the Earth is my latest book. Dance with the Earth, Partner with Nature for a healthier body, sharper mind, and happier you. That PDF will introduce you to the book. And in that book, it's filled with activities and exercises that you can actually do out in nature. It's all about all. It's the all-inspiring environment of Mother Nature. That's Dance with the Earth.
Mm.
And then the other one is Just Me. And Just Me is my new website. And everyone is invited to please visit and join my website. It's sharlashults.com. And this will also lead into another book.
Mm. I love that the workbook activities because people need that movement, that inspiration to engage in activities to inspire and uplift and empower themselves. So, congratulations on your books and what you're doing to make a difference, because as we make a difference, we create this positive ripple effect for change, and we become models for others as well.
Yeah, we do. We do. And I am on Linktree. If any of those of you that are interested in Linktree, Sharla Lee, if you'll go in there, that will give you access to everything, to all of my books. And one of my number one bestseller, The Catnip of Life, that's my book of inspirational poetry. And it's very visionary, and it makes you want to walk out the door and get into nature. It invites you,
Yes,
is what it does. It invites you to get into nature.
indeed, indeed. And let's see, before we leave you, Charlotte, you've been on TED Talks, right? TED Talks.
Yes,
Can
yes,
you just share briefly about
I
that and
did
how
a
listeners?
TED,
Mhm,
I ventured out. I stepped out on that
mhm,
stage in Billings,
mhm.
Montana in October the 11th. And the talk is Dance with the Earth, Partner with Nature. So if you go on YouTube, you can find it with the title, or you can find it
Mhm.
with my name, Sharla Shults. That was
Okay.
a very exciting,
Mhm,
rewarding experience
mhm,
that I
mhm.
had set in my
Okay.
mind that it was something I wanted to do.
And you
And
did it. Okay.
I envisioned it
Okay.
every day. I bought a red
Good.
rug and I put it in my
Okay.
kitchen. And I
Oh,
stood on that
wonderful.
red
Okay.
rug and I talked and I danced
Well,
every
you
day. And I
wonderful.
landed the talk and performed it last
Mm.
October.
Well, congratulations, Charlotte, on all your work. So we are thankful for you for this self-empowering episode, stimulating our awareness about ourselves and our relationship with others to inspire and encourage change. So we invite our listeners to tune back in, to listen to Charlotte's tips and techniques, and to share our show with others. And Charlotte, we appreciate your generosity and uh, thank you for your gift offerings to our listeners.
And thank
Okay.
you so
All right.
much. And I just
Okay.
invite,
Okay.
please visit
Okay.
Just Me
Thank
for the
you. With
moments.
okay, wonderful. So embracing you is embracing freedom to be who you truly are with no apologies. When we fully love ourselves, we are models and we not only show others how to treat us, but themselves as well. I close with two excerpts, one on true freedom and the other on self discernment. Freedom is your divine birthright. Summon your inner strength and courage. Release the ties that bind. Rise above self imposed limitations. Free yourself from the prison of negative thoughts. Break the chains of unhealthy habits. Break free from toxic relationships. Do what feels right, good, and true. Choose yourself and be free. Rise and fly. And the excerpt on self discernment: trust the wisdom in your heart that is pure, peaceful, and gentle. Inner knowing resounds inner truth, bridging clarity, courage, and stability. Refrain from arguing with thoughts and distractions from what is right, good, and true. Be not deceived by empty promises, words of false promises. Trust and honor your truth. Allow quiet time to be with yourself. Trust your gut feelings to guide your choices. Stand firm in your personal power. You will not be led astray. This is Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host. And until we meet again, remember an empowered self is a loving self. And keep your love light shining. Thank you